Okay, so we're going to talk about spring flowers. I don't have every spring flower in this presentation. There's a lot that aren't in here. I kind of selected it since this is the Idaho Home Gardening Tips and it goes out pretty much statewide, trying to tailor it to those plants that would actually reach everybody in their area for spring. So kind of as an overview, we're going to talk about a few of the spring flowers and some of the flowering shrubs and trees that are blooming this time of year. So a lot of our spring blooming plants are bulbs that you have to plant in the fall. So as we go through, I'll let you know which ones are the bulbs that you got to plant in the fall. And then there's many options depending on your area. So there's give or take from this list, there's lots out there. And so there's plenty of options out there to choose from. So one of my favorites is the crocus. As soon as that snow comes off that spot of the flower bed, they're going to pop up. They're going to come up. They come in all different colors, purple, yellow, white. They are a bulb that you have to plant in the fall. Their foliage is kind of really nice because even after the flower's done, they have kind of that nice grass-like foliage that'll sit there for a little while and in the spring until it dies off. So even when they're not in bloom, they still look pretty good. But they're one of the earliest bulbs that we can get to come up. So tulips, there's lots and lots of tulips. They keep creating more and more every year, more and more varieties. They're another bulb that you can plant, and they've got them in all kinds of colors, shapes. Great plant, really good spring flowers, and they mix well with a lot of the other ones. And so you can mix these in with a lot of the others in the beds. Okay, hyacinths. Hyacinths are also another bulb. These ones are used every now and then, but I would say tulips and daffodils are probably the most common, but these ones are great ones. They're getting close to a red one out there now, but they come in beautiful colors, really thick, showy flowers when they do come up. They don't have a very long bloom period, but they are really showy when they do come up. A really good one for spring. Okay, daffodils or the narcissus, your paper whites. There's a wide variety of those. So there's lots of different varieties there. You can get the yellow ones, you can get the orange and the white ones, or you can get the yellow ones with the orange centers. There's big flowered ones, small flowered ones, multi-flowered ones. They're another good bulb that is really showy to have out there in the spring. This is one that I feel is one of the most underused spring flowers that we have, and that's the fritillarias. There's lots of different fritillarias. They come in all different colors. There's purple, white, yellow, orange, really showy plant. The plants get really big. You can see from this picture, that's a pretty good sized stalk that they come up on. And then the flowers actually hang down as a whorl underneath the foliage. Very pretty plant, very big plant. It's also a spring bulb. If you want to add a new flower to your flower bed, add a fritillaria because it's such an amazing plant when it comes on. Grape hyacinths, these guys will form a carpet. If you give them enough time, they will take over the whole spot. I've got them coming up in my lawn, all my flower beds. When they get really thick, I dig them up and I move them elsewhere. Really great spring plant. You can make a really fun dye out of the flowers also. I've also had some people tell me they make a pretty good jelly to use the flowers to make a jelly out of. You can plant these out and they will actually naturalize the area because they'll just keep spreading and taking over. Back on the daffodils and the narcissus, they do have naturalizing daffodils. So you can actually plant them and they will spread and take over an area. So if you want to kind of do a naturalized look with the bulbs, you can do that too. Pansies are a great plant because they hit all the seasons if you want them to. Their best seasons are spring and fall. You can actually plant them out in the fall, leave them there, and they will come back in the spring and you'll get that spring bloom. They mix really well with your tulips, daffodils, any of your bulbs in a flower bed. You can just have the pansies down there. And then you can plant your annual flowers right over the top of them. The annual flowers will shade the pansies out during the hot part of the year. And then when you pull your annual flowers out, you'll have your pansies that'll come back up and have that nice color for fall. I really like pansies. They come in all colors. Another bulb, the snowdrops. They're really early to come up, really showy. They're a really small flower, but after they get established, they can actually create these big masses of just white as soon as that snow comes off the ground. They're like the crocus. They're right there when when that snow leaves, they're popping out of the ground ready to bloom. This is another one that likes to come out. You can see that there's still snow in this picture, but the glory of the snow is another great one. Looks like a little miniature hyacinth also. Great plant to have, really showy one, really puts a lot of color in an area in the spring when there is no color. Squill is another really good spring bulb if you want kind of that really nice striking color in your flower beds. This is a great one to put in there. Comes up, blooms, has great color, really good show. You can see it from quite a ways away. Great, very early spring plant. Another one is the creeping phlox. So kind of moving into kind of some of the perennials. So you can see that it's in bloom the same time that the daffodils are still blooming. It's already blooming around most of the state right now. You'll find this. If you've got a spot where you need to cover some ground, the creeping phlox is a great one. It comes in multiple colors and it'll cover a large area of the ground and give you that nice early spring color, and it comes in multiple colors. And then the foliage is even pretty when it's not in bloom. This is probably one of the earliest native plants that you'll ever find in bloom. It's the cutleaf daisy. The plant itself is just really tiny. I mean, the foliage only gets like 2-3 inches high. And then I'll send up these stalks. Those flowers are about the size of between a nickel and a quarter. So not very big flowers. This one comes on as soon as the snow leaves the ground, and it will bloom big flush in the spring, and then it'll bloom periodically throughout the summer and into the fall. It'll kind of come back with almost like a second wave. So another good one that reaches all the seasons, but its big show time is really in the spring when that snow first comes off the ground. Primrose is another good one that you can mix in. It mixes really well with pansies, and you can mix it in with your bulbs. You can go out and drop those in the ground early in the year. Great color. You can see there's a wide mix of color. Really striking foliage also, but really good plant for early spring blooms. If you've got a shady spot, this is probably one of the earliest bloomers for the shade is the Berginia, and usually about right after it blooms, you'll get your bugle weeds will come into bloom also. So they're right up there with this one. This one comes in all different sizes of leaves and different colors of the leaves. There's a striped leaf, there's a speckled leaf. It's not really sold for its flowers, but you do get color with it in a shady spot when it does bloom. But it's mainly a foliage plant for all season, but its bloom is actually in the spring. So you get extra benefit from that. Depending on where you are in the state, determines whether the peonies are in bloom or not as a spring flower. So in some places, they're a little later. It's kind of one of those controversial plants because people are like, well, here it's a spring plant, here it's a summer plant. And so I kind of put it because in Idaho, it kind of crosses a couple of seasons also there too. But peonies can be considered a spring bloomer. Another good one, the Helioboris, really pretty flower. They've got a new variety out that has a green flower on it now, or there's this almost yellow, kind of golden yellow flower, this pink and white flower, really good perennial. They will take some sun, but they kind of like more of that shaded area. They come in different heights, different sizes. There's some short ones, or there's some that get up to about 18 to 24 inches high, but they'll form this nice mat. I've seen them up to 30 inches around. Really showy one in the spring. Those flowers can get up to about 2 to 3 inches across. Another fun one is the sea thrift. It almost, as the plant starts to grow, it almost looks like it's just a clump grass in there, and then it sends up these flower stalks in the whites to the pinks, lavenders. Really showy plant, can handle a wide range of conditions. It can grow right on the coast and actually take some of that salt spray, so it can handle some salty situations. It's a very adaptable plant for soil pH and different issues. It's one of those nice adaptable plants with a really showy color when it comes up, as long as you've got multiple of them in the area. If you've got just one, it's not a very pretty plant because they are not a big plant. But if you've got pockets of them throughout your flower bed. It is a really good showy plant. The dead nettles or the lamium species, they come in different colors. They're sold as a foliage plant. They can handle full sun and almost full shade. And they also have a really fun flower. They can be a dark purple to pink to white, depending on which variety of the dead nettles you have. They make a really good ground cover under trees also as well, so they can handle those type of situations. Really not sold for their flowers, but sold for their foliage. But when they do bloom, they do put up a lot of blossoms at that time. Euphorbia is another spring flower. There's lots of euphorbia species. There's some that are semi-woody. There's herbaceous ones. So there's a number of different species in there. If you look really close at these flowers, you'll say, well, that's leafy spurge. Yes, leafy spurge is a euphorbia, so they're related. It does have that latex in there. You have to be careful with this plant because it can cause reactions if you get that latex on your skin. So it is a nice showy color for spring, and there's hundreds of different varieties. There's a house down here in Jerome that has 70 different varieties of euphorbia in their yard. Some of them are spring bloomers, some of them are summer bloomers, some of them are fall bloom. But if you want some good spring color, most of them that grow in our area are in the yellows. The wild geranium, really good showy plant. They come in different colors. So there's this dark lavender one, there's a almost white one, there's a pink one, there's a darker pink one. There's some that look like you cross the two together and you've got the purple in with the pink. And so really good plant. It's a native species to around here, can handle drought conditions. When they put on their blooms, they're really showy. And then when looking at some shrubs, so forsythia is probably one of the first things that everybody think of in the spring when, okay, yeah, forsythia is in bloom now. It's time to do all these different garden chores. So I personally don't care for forsythia because it only looks good when it's blooming. Other than that, it's not a pretty looking shrub. So I'm not a fan of forsythia, but they do look good this time of year when they're in bloom. This is the one that I prefer in place of the forsythia is the golden currant. They are in bloom at my house right now, just covered with all these yellow blossoms. And then I get to eat the currants. I get to harvest the currants off of them later. I was just out walking around my yard right before this presentation, and I had bumblebees on the currant plants. And so really good early spring yellow flower. I mean, blooms the same time the forsythia does. I like it instead because the plant itself looks pretty even after it blooms, and then I get fruit off of it. Another one that's in bloom this time of year, another shrub, is the Oregon grape. It's got almost a holly looking leaf, bright yellow flowers, and then they'll have purple berries on them in the fall. Very pretty plant. Their yellow flowers really stand out with those dark, shiny, glossy leaves that the plant has. Really pretty plant. It can handle sun. It can handle full shade. It grows in its natural area. It's usually an understory plant. As long as it gets some really good morning sun, you'll get really good blooming out of it this time of year. Lilacs. So here in Twin, the lilacs are all coming into bloom right now. So they're considered a spring flower. I know growing up, the lilacs bloomed around Memorial Day. Well, it doesn't happen anymore. They're always blooming before Memorial Day. Great smell on the lilacs. The flowers are also edible. They taste really good mixed with cheese or in lemonade or used as a garnish on a salad. And you can get there's the light purple, the dark purple, the white ones, really showy flowers when they are in bloom. Down here, all the magnolias are in bloom. We've got a couple of them planted at the county building where I work. Really showy bloom this time of year. They come in a number of different colors. And then depending on where you live and what your soil type is, you can grow azaleas. Supposedly, there is an azalea that's supposed to handle the higher pH soils. I'm still skeptical on whether it's actually going to work and get good color, but those up in northern Idaho that have the right conditions to grow azaleas is another good spring plant that you can plant. Red buds are a really pretty showy tree. When I was doing some research for somebody on red buds, one of the questions I came across is why do they call it red bud when most of them are purple? A really showy plant when they come on. Not a big tree, small tree, or you can consider it a large shrub, but really showy color in the spring when they come on. So your earliest blooming fruit trees are your apricots, great trees to have around, cherry trees, apple trees. My apple's just starting to bloom, but it's a late fall apple, so I'm not too concerned whether it blooms now or a couple of weeks from now. So a lot of your fruit trees are in bloom. I mean, the cherry blossoms back in Washington, D.C. draw hundreds of thousands of people. Also over in Japan, when the cherries are in bloom, that's the big thing everybody wants to go see is the cherry trees in bloom. And then another one that most people don't consider is the maple trees, the Norway maples. So I've got 3 of them in my yard right now. They're so yellow right now. They just hum with the bees that are around them, that when the sun's shining, it doesn't matter which room in my house you walk past or one of those trees is outside the window. There's actually a glow in that room from the yellow coming off of that tree into the house. So don't rule out the trees because they do have some good flowers early in the spring.